Hi, I'm Seán Duggan, and welcome to TheFIX, the podcast about Photoshop, Lightroom, post-processing, and all the cool and creative things that we get to do with our images after the shoot. On today's show, we're going to have a little bit of a departure from what we normally do. We're going to be talking about post-processing, but not in the sense of what you do to make your images look better, but in the sense of what you do to ensure that your images have a future beyond you. So we're going to be talking about your digital photo afterlife and ensuring that your family has easy access to all the important family photographs in your archive. Well, thanks for tuning in and joining me here on TheFIX as always, wherever you're tuning in from out there in Internetlandia. I'm really honored to have Erika Thornes stopping by as our guest today to discuss this very important topic. Erika, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming by.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
Well, I know that you have put a lot of thought into this topic, but before we get into this topic, tell us a little bit about the type of photography you do and where people can find out more about you out on the web.
Well, I like to say I like to document life. I am a photographer that focuses on life events, so weddings, birthday parties, different things like that, as well as the important events in between the important events. So just a day at the beach or whatever happens in life that needs to be documented. So I'm a generalist, but I also really find the value in telling our story, our family story. And as you know, I also have a good time and really enjoy shooting underwater as a side hobby.
Well, and you also have a lot of experience photographing children because you have three beautiful little girls of your own, and I'm sure that they also have lots of friends that are hanging around all the time. And you have also a new lynda.com course coming up on photographing children. Is that the case?
Yep, the title has been officially named Portrait Photography, Kids in Parks and at Play. So taking pictures of kids while they are wanting to play instead of being photographed, and how to deal with encouraging them to put them in the best light where they can still really be engaged and having a great time with you, even if you have the camera in your hands. So it's going to be a fun course.
So sort of surreptitiously saying, why don't you guys play over here? It's a great place to play, and you're putting there because the light is better here.
Exactly. And what angle I'm going to shoot them from. So, you want to go in the swings? Let's go to the swings. But then where you stand and what swing you put them on is determined by the light.
Excellent. No, that sounds like a good course. Cool. I look forward to that when that comes out. So, speaking of taking pictures of our kids and family photography, the whole point about this show was sort of generated by a post that you made on Facebook a while ago, where you were asking people if they had ideas about how they handled their digital photo afterlife. And that really intrigued me because of how you phrased all of that. And so why don't you tell us how that kind of got on your own personal radar and what that prompted you to do in terms of changing how you do things with your photography workflow?
Well, my father was an amazing amateur photographer. He did a great job of documenting his friends and family and what was going on in his life. And I have inherited all of his slides, all of his photo albums and everything. And it's great. And I realized that he had spent the time to weed out all of the bad shots. And so I'm just left with the cream of the crop, which is still quite a big archive, but it's there. And he was smart enough too to send pictures out to multiple family members so that my aunts had copies, my grandmother had copies, and I also inherited copies. So it was in more than one location. So I was really impressed by how my father handled it before I inherited this collection. I also was helping with a friend, a really good friend of mine who I turned to a lot for advice. I found her in a photography forum, and we became close to the point where we would speak almost daily on the phone. Her whole goal was to document her grandchildren's lives, and she wanted to present a legacy that she could pass on to them. And she was consumed by this idea of legacy through photography and telling the family story. And unfortunately, she fell ill and wasn't able to complete all of the projects that she had set aside to do. And she passed away after in and out of the hospital for a month or so, and left a digital Lightroom catalog of over 250,000 images. And I had the responsibility and the honor of being able to help her family get those photos from their raw format and in her Lightroom catalog to a way that they would be able to access them and enjoy them and preserve them as non-photographers. Because easy for us in Lightroom to be able to access those photos and know how to do them and know how the export settings work. But just turning on to a computer with somebody who isn't familiar with Lightroom, it was way too daunting for them to even know where to begin.
Wow. Yeah. So they reached out to you because they knew that you were a friend of hers, and they were kind of lost probably and thought, hey, can you help us out with this?
Yeah, and I just kind of helped. I came to their house and said, I gathered up all the hard drives and grabbed the computer, and thankfully didn't have it password locked down. So I was able to access her Lightroom catalogs and able to still plug in all the hard drives to have access to them. But it was quite a challenge to look at all of these images and how she had tried to preserve them, and so many things she did right. She was uploading them to the cloud, Kodak. That website's not, so, but thankfully she had checked her emails and had re-downloaded all the photos and put them on a separate hard drive that she had tried to preserve on the cloud. She had printed photo books. She had categorized them, but she still had this catalog of 250,000 images that her children will eventually, and grandchildren will eventually want to sort through, that by the time that they're ready for them, the formats they were in wouldn't be ideal or compatible.
Mm-hmm. And just as a clarification for viewers and listeners who are wondering about that little reaction when Erika said, "Oh, she uploaded them to the Kodak, cloud service," that's because that's one of those cloud services that was kind of a big thing for a while, but then went away.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so you just got to be careful. I mean, having cloud backup is fantastic, but you still, just like any form of digital backup or even manual backup, we have to be aware of what's going on with that. We can't it's not a do it and forget it type situation. And thankfully we were able to get all the photos. She downloaded them all back off of the cloud before that website went kaput.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And so, and the question is, and that occurs to me a lot is that, even though I know Lightroom and I have my Lightroom catalog very well organized and I use keywords a lot, no matter how great and wonderful your Lightroom catalog is organized, it does require some familiarity with the Lightroom program in order to go in and navigate it and work with it and you get the photos out in another format. And so, once we're gone, somebody else is going to have to come in and do that. And obviously, your friend's family is very fortunate that, you were around to fill that role. But, not all of us may have, something like that readily available. So, for instance, in my family, my wife uses Bridge and she uses Photoshop for what photographic stuff she needs to do. But she doesn't know Lightroom at all. And my daughter doesn't know Lightroom, not to say that she may not one day. But you sort of have to realize that since we rely on specific software programs to interface with our images, that there is a big potential block to allowing, people in the future to access it after we're gone, to easily access it.
Absolutely. And what I've learned through this whole process, and especially when I'm just going through this, realizing the sheer amount, we as photographers who make our living with photography don't have just family photos in our Lightroom catalog. At least I don't. They're kind of combined. They kind of, my business and my personal almost, coexist. And I'm okay with that, but that's going to be a real challenge for people who are trying to access it if I'm not available to do so. And it would be an ideal situation. You could say, oh, I'll just keep my family photos completely separate from my other photos. But it doesn't, for me, my catalog, it doesn't work very well to try and keep them separated. What's your experience with that?
Well, I know that there are a lot of photographers who have sort of a strict separation between their personal photos and their work photos. For the type of work that I do, a lot of it's sort of fine art based and also illustrative and stuff. So I do a lot of work for my compositing. So my stuff is all jumbled together. It's just sort of I photograph my life as you do. And then, within that big catalog, I've got, work stuff as well as family stuff. Early on, I did try, early on when I first started using Lightroom, so this is back in like 2007, I decided, it would be important to have my family photographs in a totally different folder structure. Mm-hmm. That way, if my family needs to access them, independent of me, there they are. They know that here's the family photographs, so that they can see that folder on a hard drive independent of Lightroom and see family photographs. But that just became really cumbersome to separate those out. And then there were photographs of my family that actually had sort of fine art appeal to me, and so, or stock image appeal. And it just, it worked for a while, but then it just became cumbersome and I kind of just stopped doing that. So, I have them all together.
Yeah, see, and what I've discovered is that there are only a few photos from my family's shoot or my family's day that are going to be wanting to preserve for legacy use. So like if I go to my daughter's school, Valentine's Day party, and I shoot 30 pictures and pass them out to other moms of their kids. But I've got like one image of my daughter eating a cookie looking really super cute. That's the one image that I'm going to want to save. The other 20 or 30, they can be there. They can be sitting in my Lightroom catalog, but that's not something that my family is going to want after I die. And so what I've got to do is take those 2 or 3 images from each day and preserve those. And so what I've implemented, my husband actually implemented this, is he set up an accessible shared family drive that he's converted to a slideshow that runs on our TV. But it's easy for me to have a preset in Lightroom it's for exporting photos. It's in the export dialog. You can create, just simple, easy ways that one click, I want all of these photos to go to this spot. So I'll highlight them in the catalog. And when I'm closing my Lightroom for the day, I can easily just take those 2 or 3 photos and export those to that separate hard drive that he has access to. And then that's where I go for the images that tell our family story. And they're JPEGs, so they're easier to access for everybody. I'm keeping the raw files. I'm keeping those in my personal space, but the ones that my family is going to really want in long term, that I can keep a set of those that are the best of the best is easy access for everybody.
And do you, when you export or in your normal file naming protocol that you use in your image catalog, do you have the date as part of the file name?
I do, but I don't necessarily need to. I can create a super long file name that we can read for keywords for later in that file name. But Lightroom, just the way that JPEGs are set up, the date is already embedded into the file. So I can just search by that date, creation date, even if I don't put it in the file name.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I use the 6-digit kind of database-y expression of the date, where it's 2 digits for the year, 2 for the month, 2 for the day. And that way I know right off the bat, what the date is, if that is important to me. Yeah.
And, it's more important to me to kind of, with JPEG previews, I try and keep them named by like Thanksgiving or whatever when I'm exporting them, but then have the tags on the end of whatever information I want. But it's not super necessary because I can figure it out by just sorting through them by date later. And I do throw, because it's not an enormous number of images, it's easier to just not worry too much about it.
All right, so you have your export preset there.
Yes.
And by the way, we should mention to viewers and listeners that Probably by the time this episode airs on Tuesday, January 12th, you're going to have an article on photofocus.com on creating export presets. Is that correct?
Yes. And just how to do it in Lightroom and how to make it. It has to be like a two-click solution, or else it's just not going to happen. And I figured that the best way to get into these habits is to make it easy and accessible, and not something that becomes cumbersome and a burden. So if it just becomes part of your daily shutdown routine when you're editing family photos, to take those favorites and just stuff them over to another hard drive or another folder, that it becomes much more manageable.
Yeah, no, great. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes when that becomes available. So you have, so step one of your process is you have the export preset, you save out a JPEG of the very best, few family pictures from, whatever, each week, each day, each event. And those go on to, this hard drive, this separate hard drive that is tied into a slideshow on your TV.
Yeah, and that hard drive is backed up to the cloud, and
Okay, so you have all that, and the slideshow obviously is, obviously that's a place for those family photos to go, where everybody knows, oh, here's our important family photos. But it also is a nice thing for you guys to enjoy as a family when you're gathering around, for events and what, to have the slideshow running in the background. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. 100% true. But as we've heard so many times with digital afterlife, and we're talking about photos, and we always see the memes going everywhere, print. I 100% agree, but I want to put the caveat on it: print and send. So, we print a copy of our photos for us to have. We have a paper copy. But I've had too many experiences and too many friends. Just a friend just recently, 2 days after Christmas, lost all of her computers and most of her family photos in a fire. We had my daughter's kindergarten teacher had just gotten married, and they were moving all of their belongings in their moving truck, and the moving truck caught fire. Just Monday at my house, our garage flooded. We had some storming here, and thankfully everything was in plastic tubs and survived. But, those paper copies they just like digital, they're not foolproof. So I recommend, and I have a habit of taking those same JPEGs that I've uploaded as my favorites to that hard drive folder, and I upload them to Costco.com or MPix, whatever's having the best deal at the moment. And I send a copy of those to Grandma. So Grandma gets a copy of our fun moments, the same moments that I post on Facebook. But since she doesn't have Facebook, she gets to feel a part of our family. And she's also doing me a huge favor by being my backup.
Your offsite backup for the prints.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wow. What a great thing for Grandma. What a lucky grandma you have.
Yeah. This sounds really horrible, but when Grandma passes away, I've got that set of prints, that will come back to my kids. And so they'll also be able to have, and if you send them to multiple houses and multiple locations, eventually those will come back, and my kids will have copies. So it's kind of a nice way to set up an offsite archive.
And we should point out that you mentioned whatever service is having the best deal that week, the cost per print on having a 4x6 made is often very, very low. Yeah,
like 9 cents, something like that. And a lot of times you can find coupons for 100 free prints, because they want you to get into the habit of using them for, enlargements or other services as well. Plus, they'll do direct delivery. So you don't actually physically ever have to leave your house or go to the mailbox to send these little gifts out to preserve your family's story. So it actually is pretty easy, and it's pretty painless. And so I've definitely made that a part of our life. The other thing I do is, I'm a year behind on this, but when I create a family book, when we do the family albums that I put together for a vacation that we've taken, so like every time we go on a vacation with grandparents, I'll put together a photo album of that trip. I'll keep a copy for me, but I'll also print a second copy of that book. You can find deals and you can find coupons, or you can print a lesser quality book, that you can find for a special price. And then I give those as a gift to the grandparents, as a thank you gift for coming with us on the trip. And they'll have a copy at their house, and I'll have a copy at mine. So I have duplicate hard copies of our treasured family moments in book form.
That's great. And, for all of the inherent fragility of paper, as a medium for, storing things, whether it's, letters or diaries or photographs. The one advantage of that, and of course, not to discount, that you should also have a very robust digital, redundant digital backup of your images, and in a way that people can access them without having to rely on a software package. For all the fragility of paper, one thing about it that's nice is that you can see the photos without relying on a machine or software. That's definitely, you can go into the box of great-grandfather's old pictures and still pick them up and look at them, sit on the couch and look at them. You don't need any technology knowledge or anything like that, or any special machines or software to look at it. So it's one prong of that multi-prong approach that you are advocating.
Absolutely. And it's not hard. I mean, it used to be hard. It used to be you'd have to go down. And I mean, I remember when it cost, like, back when I was in college and I was just starting out my married life, I'd go on our honeymoon, and I had to budget like $200 to develop my rolls of film and to get my prints back and everything like that. And thankfully, the cost per print is so much cheaper now because we're not having to, develop all of the photos to get our few favorites that become the family memories. And we're also not having to have an archive of so many shots. And we do have so many shots in our Lightroom catalog. So just pull out the best. We don't need to save them all. And that's a hard thing as photographers, is we're digital hoarders, because as you love to do your composites, you're like, but this texture rocks,
Yeah. I can use this picture of this weird metal thing in a composite someday.
Exactly. And I mean, the problem is your wife and your daughter are going to look at that and go, oh, Dad.
Yeah. Why was he taking pictures of this junk?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Just preserving the ones for your family, it becomes in a separate special spot that needs to be set above and set aside, because those are the things, those really help inspire memory retrieval. Does that make sense? I mean, the memories are there, but being able to come back and see those key moments just really triggers an emotional response in the viewers. And, your kids and your grandkids, they're going to want to see, they're going to want to see those images one day, but they only need to see the best of the best.
Yeah, no. And it's, as you point out, you don't need everything. You just need a few key photos of the family or your kids or whatever at a given event or whatever. Because if you think back to, the frequency with which photos were taken and also shared back, like when we were kids, it wasn't as anything like it is now, where we can photograph everything with our phones. We're photographing our kids all the time, it seems. So, back when I was a kid, I didn't have that many photographs of me as a kid. I mean, I had a fair amount, but, not like it is now. So Correct. It's only those key moments that you need. You don't need everything. 24/7 coverage.
Exactly. And it's like looking at a catalog of 250,000 images, which, right now my catalog for just these past 2 years is like at 150,000 images. That's a burden to be placed on the future. I don't want to place that burden on my kids or my family members. I want to be able to give them maybe 2,000 or 3,000 images from their entire childhood, which sounds like a lot, but it's not. 1 or 2 shots from this Christmas, 3 or 4 shots from this time where we dyed Easter eggs, 2 shots from them playing puddles, splashing in the puddles at the park, or right. 1 picture of them jumping hurdles. All of those different images, they only need a snapshot, because that one snapshot will bring back the memories of that event and that time in their lives. And they don't need the 40 shots of them almost jumping over the hurdle, just the one.
Unless there's just a great facial expression.
Exactly. That becomes the one.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good point. It points out the need to be a really good curator of your own sort of family image history and realize you don't need everything. And of course, we get emotionally attached to those pictures more so than any other pictures, because not only did we take the pictures, but they are pictures of our family, people, our children, our spouses, people we love, brothers and sisters. And so there's that emotional attachment. So it's easy to try to want to hang on to many more photos maybe than you really need to. So good point.
And the thing is, like when my friend died, she had left 250,000 photos, and they were spread out over 7 hard drives. And she had done a good job, and she had printed the books. The kids have those. But and what I was able to do was I took all of those images and I put them into JPEG form because they were in their raw format. Their kids weren't going to be able to access them. They didn't have access to the Lightroom catalog. They wouldn't even know what a Lightroom catalog was if I told them. So I was able to export them out of Lightroom and onto a single hard drive, all in JPEG format instead of the proprietary formats from the different cameras she used. And I was able to keep the same file name and the hard drive name from their original source. So that way, when I handed back the computer and the hard drive, I also handed them, here you go, a big giant collection of all those other hard drives. So if there was that one image that was lost somewhere in the thing, they had the JPEG copy of it and they could go trace it back to the original file. But
so searching by the file name.
Searching by the file name. So I didn't alter the file name, and so it would still be easy enough to trace back to original source if they want to get the original file off of the hard drive. Yeah. But I think that's going to be a really rare instance that someone's going to really want to hunt back the original file. They're still there. They're going to be harder to access. And there are plenty of companies now that are working on that you can pay a boatload of money to, who will access those ancient services and retrieve those files for you and put them in a current format.
Yeah, but you can obviate the need for that just by putting in place a well thought out plan to kind of, future proof your archive, the most important pictures for your family yourself, so that, in the future they wouldn't have to pay for an expensive service to go and access,
exactly.
old services.
And, there's so many companies now that really want you to use them. So like right now, if you are a Amazon Prime member, you can easily upload all of your photos, all your JPEGs. They don't allow raw files. And so that's kind of a barrier for me because I shoot mostly in RAW, but all of your JPEGs, they will take and store for free, and it is unlimited. You can have as many JPEGs as you want stored on Amazon. And right now they're a leader. So at the moment, you don't need to worry about that service going down. So that's a great secondary solution. You can even just, even in Lightroom, they have the published services, and there's plenty of web services. Like I use SmugMug right now. And even when I shoot a wedding and it's for a client, as soon as I get home that night and I've imported all the photos into my library, SmugMug's probably going to kill me for this, but I take every single image from that wedding and upload it in JPEG format to their cloud, to my gallery. And I just do unedited JPEG backup. So I have a full-size JPEG backup of all of the images I shot that day and keep it in there until the client's delivered. I've delivered all the edited ones. And that's a triple redundant backup beyond me using the cloud services, beyond me using multiple hard drives at home, beyond me keeping them on the memory card until the client's delivered their images. But it's an easy way to use published services to select different images and send them up to the cloud easily through Lightroom. And it's easy. It might be a way that you can preserve your memories through Lightroom, using Lightroom software to upload to sort of other services. Now, a while ago, we talked about a tip that I thought was kind of unique. A lot of us use Facebook. And unfortunately, images that I would normally send to grandma, I found a tip, though, that when you upload to Facebook Stream, the photos are kind of small and they're compressed. If you upload to a gallery on Facebook instead of directly onto your stream. So instead of, you can click on the button, it says, upload photo or whatever, you click on albums instead, you'll have the option to upload a full res version of your file. And that way, if worst comes to worst, an emergency, you can print directly out of the albums and it'll be a better quality photo than if you would have just posted it to your stream.
So that is a good tip. I was not aware of that. So you can print the full res from the Facebook album, or would you have to download it first as a full res?
It depends. I think that they might have some services where you can print directly from Facebook. I know that when I go to Costco, they have a way to access your albums and you can print directly there at the store. So there are abilities and ways to print directly from Facebook, but yes, you can re-download the full res photos. Their algorithm crunches them a little bit. They're not the highest quality, but it's a really good emergency backup if all else fails. So whenever I have, photos from sort of an event that I'm doing with my kids, like a birthday party, I'll upload 4 or 5 images to, even if it's just 4 or 5 images, I'll upload to a gallery of photos instead of uploading them directly onto my stream.
Excellent. Cool. All right. So we have a multi-prong approach. We have the exporting the pictures from Lightroom, the very best pictures as JPEGs, full-size JPEGs, saving those to a totally different, either a totally different drive or just some other place where the family knows, hey, here's the family photos. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's backed up, as are all of our drives. If you're listening and watching out there, have you gotten the clue here that backing up photos and having redundant backups is important? So we have that. We have the print and send approach, where you print out important pictures as 4x6s and you send them to another family member, creating a sort of an offsite backup for the printed versions. I'm sure you have printed versions yourself. The occasional photo books as ways to preserve key family moments in that format.
Duplicate photo books.
And duplicate photo books. Yeah, you can have duplicate photo books. And then, of course, you probably just have your normal backup system in place for the photos. Yeah.
And I always do the duplicate, because think about this. I should do it in triplicate because I have 3 daughters. And so that way each family will be able to carry that legacy on. So I'm just hoping one won't care.
Yeah. Well, and just putting that in place, because it's you going through all these steps is going to mean so much, because that means it's all in place, for them, and they can either have it as prints or the photo book, or just that handy hard drive of just the JPEGs. And I think the key about that is that you don't have to rely on any specific software package like Lightroom or whatever software package you might be using for your catalog. You don't have to rely on that to be able to even see the photos. Of course, you do need a computer to see the photos, but we're assuming that images will be important long into the computer future, and that JPEG is going to be a format that's going to be around for a while.
Or at least you'll be able to read the JPEG files for a while. Exactly.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all that information. It's really obvious that you put a lot of deep thought into this over a fair amount of time to come up with these recommendations and kind of workflow procedures.
Mm-hmm. It's been something that it's important, because you just watch what happens. It's one thing that we will all face in life. None of us is immune from this, and so we've got to figure a way to make it as easy and to get those memories preserved. If they're important to us, they might be important to our grandchildren or our future generations. So we just got to figure out the best way to do it so we aren't a burden.
Yeah, definitely. And you hear people talk all the time about the difference between people who do have access to a real rich and vibrant sort of family archive of photographs and sometimes other memorabilia, and then you sometimes meet people who don't have hardly any photographs at all from their past, either their own past or even their grandparents' past, something like that. So it is definitely an important aspect of kind of preserving that family history and carrying it forward.
Because it might not be important to one of your kids, but you never know if it's important to one of their kids. And I mean, it's not the end of the world, but if we can preserve it, and there might be somebody who's interested in it, I go on the path of let's preserve it, because it miite be very important to someone in the future.
Yeah, no, good advice. So tell our viewers and listeners where they can find out more about you and your upcoming things that you have on Photo Focus and lynda.com.
Well, you just did it. So I'm on Photo Focus. I'm a regular author there. And I also am just starting lynda.com. So I'm excited to become a fellow author with you. My first course is coming out next week on shooting the kids in the parks. Actually, I'm not supposed to say shoot, taking photographs of children in the parks. Very good. And I am the only Erika Thornes in the world, and it's Erika. So if you look me up somewhere, that's me. So feel free to drop me a line. I absolutely love answering people's questions. I think this is my passion, to help people preserve their memories and give them encouragement to do that. So any questions, don't feel embarrassed to reach out to me. I absolutely am 100% accessible, and I want to make sure that I can send you on the right path.
Well, great. And apropos questions, if viewers want to either leave a question or post maybe an idea that they have about maybe something that they do in terms of their own workflow for preserving
I'd love to hear it.
photos, feel free to do that on the comment page for this episode at thisweekinphoto.com/TheFIX. And from among those comments, I will be selecting a winner for our book giveaway from Rocky Nook Press. So the book giveaway is back. It was gone for a few months on hiatus, but it is back. So I'll be posting details about that on the show notes for this page. So definitely, if you have a question for Erika, you can leave it there. Or again, if you have something to share about something you've implemented in your own workflow for making sure that it's easy for your family to have access to the photos, you can do that as well.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for stopping by and joining me, Erika. Great topic. And I really love the fact that it was such a departure from, what we normally cover here on TheFIX, because even though it was not post-processing in terms of making our images look better, it was still post-processing to ensure that they are easily accessible in the future to our family after we're gone. An important thing for all of us to consider, I think.
Absolutely agree. I'm really happy to be on the show with you.
Cool. Well, thanks for tuning in and joining us here on TheFIX. Remember, you can always check out the audio version of the TheFIX podcast on iTunes, and you can find the video version as well as a link to a downloadable audio version on the website, thisweekinphoto.com/TheFIX. I'll be back next week with another episode. So thanks again for tuning in. Catch you next time on TheFIX.